Welcome to the Milestones Motivation and Money Podcast, hosted by Angel Radcliffe. Tune in as we discuss finances, success stories, and inspiring vibes that will help nurture growth.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. On today's episode, we have a very special guest, Dawda Pouncy, also known as Dr. Dawda. She's a health and wellness specialist from Functional Health and Wellness, and she's going to share some tips with us on how to stay healthy in 2021. Welcome, Dawda.
Hello, Angela. Thank you for having me.
So I'm so excited to have you as a guest on the show today. We've known each other through a mutual friend for a few years now, and I've been following your journey as far as what you're doing to help others. And I'm so excited to get into this discussion on things you need to do to stay healthy and how we can really take care of our bodies. So before we get started, how about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, like you said, my name is Dawda. A lot of people know me as Dr. Dawda. I'm a doctor of nursing practice, and I specialize in family medicine, functional and integrative medicine. If a lot of people don't know what that is, it's basically an integration of conventional and naturopathic medicine. So ideally, that's what I do on a daily basis. I have a practice out in Frisco, Texas, just 30 minutes north of Dallas. And we basically incorporate both conventional and alternative medicine. We spend a lot of time investigating the root cause of disease, trying to figure out what's going on with patients that may be chronically ill, using unique diagnostic tools, and just trying to find ways to develop treatment plans that may be more natural solutions.
That sounds so exciting. And it sounds like you have to be very knowledgeable of the area of science. And so how did you get into this specific area?
Oh gosh, mine really started it's more my own personal journey. I started out really early. I knew I liked a lot about the sciences. I remember, when I was about maybe 10, 11 years old, I would read medical terminology books and books about human anatomy at the time, and they really intrigued me. I really didn't know what it was. I just knew it was very interesting. So, I think probably by the time I was 12 years old, I had already self-diagnosed myself with probably every possible disease known to man because I was just so interested in it. But as I've journeyed, throughout my life, I went to college. My actual major was in broadcast journalism as opposed to medicine. But during that time when I was in school, I actually suffered some minor health issues myself. It led me to a lot of interactions with doctors and nurses in the healthcare field. And I guess during that time, I had some good and bad experiences. And so a lot of those bad experiences actually stuck out more. And because of those experiences, I wanted to be that change, be different. So I actually decided to go to nursing school. And then eventually I went to medical school. And when I was in medical school, I became sick as well. And it got to where my health started to decline. And at that time, they just kind of kept sending me back and forth from doctor to doctor. And I really couldn't figure out what was going on with me. And just unfortunately, conventional medicine alone wasn't able to give me the answers that I needed to understand why I was suffering. So I actually turned to more naturopathic medicine. And that's when I started to really understand more about my body, and I was able to naturally heal. So that's ideally what led me to functional medicine, just because of my experience. And now I can able to help other people that go through the same thing I went through even more, to be able to heal more naturally.
And I always think that our experiences definitely help us to help other people. It's who knows it better than someone who's already been through that same thing? And so you already know the symptoms, you know what works, what doesn't work. Although our bodies are different, I think that's really amazing. And I'm so glad you touched on the educational area. I was going to ask, how long does it take to get into this particular field when we're discussing education? But while I was thinking of asking that question, I was journalism, broadcast journalism, because you've been on a few different TV segments.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're a natural. So then that would make sense if you were originally majoring in journalism.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to be on the news. I want to be that anchor lady, but actually end up venturing off more towards medicine. But I'm starting to come back around to some of the things I've been recently doing, is doing some local television, local radio stations. And I love it. I enjoy it because I love to get out, not only just do, be in front of, in the spotlight and television. I love that part of it, but I also love being able to spread the word about natural medicine and how people can naturally heal themselves. So it kind of blended in with itself.
It does. So, have you ever thought about having your own TV show where you're discussing natural medicine and maybe having people on and diagnosing them like on a show, like somewhat reality, or are you just sticking to like the interview segments?
All the time, all the time. That's my that's one of my goals, is to have maybe my own health and wellness show, or be like a correspondence on the national news or something like that. But yeah, absolutely. It's not just about, just the publicity, being able to get on there, but just to be able to spread that knowledge. And that's what sparks me. That's my passion, is to be able to educate people. So that way I know I've made a difference. So absolutely, at some point, hopefully, we'll see whatever God has in place, but I'm just trusting the process right now. So yeah, to answer your question, I do.
Definitely. I think you should go for it. I just keep thinking about that show, The Doctors,
Yes.
and they take the audience questions or people would call in. I could definitely see you doing something like that.
Yeah, I actually have a few of my friends that are on that show. So I'm talking to them all the time, like, hey, yeah, one day I'll be there. Either that, or I'm coming for you, Dr. Oz, whichever one. I'll be there. You'll have to retire someday, so I'll be up next.
So your office offers a multitude of services, and I want to know, or what's the number one service your clients come to you for?
Well, ideally, because we do promote functional medicine, most of our clients, they come for our functional medicine custom treatment plans. So these are the patients that they're looking for alternative ways to not necessarily just be on medications. They want something that's more natural solution. So that's the main thing they come for me. And if not, they'll come for like natural hormone replacement therapy. A lot of people that have like sexual dysfunctions, they'll come for that. Also, people that are looking for like regenerative services, such as like natural hair. So, and also one of the common things that people come for us is IV vitamin infusion treatments.
And that's definitely something I have on my list to ask you about because I've seen you post about that on social media as far as your clients who are receiving the treatments. I've seen IV nutrient therapy in so many other spaces and magazines, and I've never had it myself, but I'm always like, I might need that because one, I'm anemic. And so I'm always like low energy. In addition to being anemic, I have very low vitamin D. So I'm out of there.
Yes, yes. And so, I mean, that's a common thing. Like, first, with the vitamin infusions, basically, some people don't know what that is. It's when you infuse vitamins and minerals directly into your bloodstream by way using like a needle or a catheter. It goes directly into the vein. Pretty much the benefits of that is you get 100% absorption and from those vital nutrients that you need. And that's what helps give you the boost of energy. So if you were to take supplements by mouth, you only get maybe 50% absorption, especially if you have like some digestive issues. But this way you get 100% absorption. The other thing about IV infusions and why I really promote it a lot, because our bodies is made of mostly water. And so if we're not getting that hydration we need, that's where a lot of disease and illnesses would come in. So it helps to moisten your mucous membranes and things like that, and help to fight off defense, just infections and things like that. So I highly recommend doing IV vitamin infusion at least one time in your life.
And on the topic of water, that was actually one of my goals for this year is really staying hydrated. And I keep the apps on my phone where you track your food and I'm always looking at my water intake. And I have one of the scales that tells you like how much water weight you have, bone mass, everything. And I ended up buying this Bluetooth water bottle right before the holidays where it's supposed to keep track of how much water you're drinking. And ever since I've had this water bottle, I've been hitting my targets. It takes into account your height, your weight, and the weather in your area. So then your water intake should change based on the weather. And mine ranges anywhere from like 60 to like 90 ounces a day. And you think,
Wow.
yeah, 90 ounces is, I'm like, that's a lot of water, but the bottle itself is 21 ounces. And
Mhm.
so I do find myself reaching my goal usually by about 6 p.m. every day. And I'm like, I can't believe I drink this much water.
Right, right. Wow, gosh, Angela, you really have intrigued me about the the Bluetooth water bottle. I've never heard of that before. That's awesome. So I'm going to go take a look at that myself. But yeah, water is so important. It's our body's made up. It's, more than half our body weight is from water, and you need that to be able to replenish. I know there's all types of water out there, but I recommend, just doing definitely purified water. Keep it simple. So I recommend is just basically keeping it simple. I mean, I hear people, they always ask me, what type of water do I drink? A lot of people think water is boring, so they try to add things like seltzer water or something like that. I don't have anything against seltzer water, but if you compare it to like other sugary drinks, it might be the greater of the two evils. You want to say that. But if you do decide to drink that, just make sure you don't have any like gastrointestinal issues that can kind of help irritate the gastrointestinal lining. And then there's another thing that people are drinking is like alkaline water. The reason why is because, everybody's on this health kick, which is great. It's my world, is my arena. So I'm so happy about that. But if you're drinking more alkaline water, it makes your body less acidic. So anytime your body's more acidic, it leaves more room for chronic disease. So that's why, I do highly recommend like alkaline water if possible.
And every time I see essential water on sale, I'm buying cases. I
Yeah.
love my alkaline water, but
Right.
I want to ask this question because this is a debate that I often have with my friends. Like, people who've known me forever know I only drink bottled water. I will only drink tap water if there's no other water around and I'm dehydrated. Is there an actual difference, health wise, between like the tap and the bottled water? Or, some people will say never drink tap water and it does this to your system. And is that
Right.
actually true? Or what insight can you give us around that?
Well, there's a lot of variables when it comes to that. So when you think about like tap water, it depends on where the tap water is coming from. Is the tap water, is it coming from a good clean source? Are there toxins or heavy metal buildup that could be in it? So maybe it's not it may not be the best choice, as opposed to if you were to do bottled water. Depends on what type of bottled water you're doing. Like you said, there's alkaline, there's mineral water, there's just still water. So you can get a really good purified bottled water, that's great. But then you have this debate about drinking out of the plastic bottles. One, how bad is that for the environment? And then two, is there anything that can build up into the water bottles and cause you to be sick? So what I say to that is, one, do the best you can, keep it simple, but you always have to remember that on a daily basis, we are taking in toxins regardless. So making sure you keep your body detox is as much as possible. So as you're taking in the water, you have to consider at some point you have to detox those things that could be filtering through either the filtered water, the tap water, or the bottled water. But if I had to choose, I would say, try to do more purified in a glass bottle as opposed to plastic bottles.
So I want to go back to, you were mentioning custom treatment plans for your clients. I know you gave a few examples, but I'm definitely trying to understand, like, what exactly does that entail? Is it more of like the number of services? Does that include multiple services of like one particular treatment, or is it a variety of different treatments put together? Can you give me an example of a custom treatment plan for someone and this is a hypothetical situation, but someone who came in like for fibromyalgia pain? I don't know if that's
Yeah.
true, but
Right, right. I mean, that's absolutely true. I mean, fibromyalgia is a major thing that's going on in the U.S. and just throughout the world. To me, I think it's more of a symptom. That's when you have chronic pain for unknown cause. But basically, what I say to that is our custom treatment plans really depends on the individual, and they're all individualized and they're based off of what's going on with that particular patient. So usually when they come in, we'll do initial consultation with them, and then follow up with do some diagnostic testing. Once we get those results back from that diagnostic test, it's kind of like our roadmap to tell us where there may be a particular issue, because we're looking at the body system as a whole, not just one particular area. Once we get that information, we'll be able to create what's called like a functional health report for you. And based off that report, I'll create a plan according to wherever the issue is. So say, for instance, if you have something like fibromyalgia, a lot of times fibromyalgia is heavily related to possibly things like other autoimmune disorders. You may look into additional testing for that. And then also you may want to look at the diet. The diet is so important, especially if you're eating foods that you may be allergic to or may have some type of sensitivities to. We're looking at those things. There's another thing that plays out is something called the adrenal glands. Anytime your adrenal glands are stressed out, That can mean that there's inflammation in the body, and fibromyalgia is basically inflammation in the body. So that could be more diagnostic testing there, and then we'll start to implement those particular treatments that may, wherever the issue may be. So if it's a allergy or some type of sensitivity, we'll do a food elimination diet. If it's something that's caused by yeast or something that's built up in the diet, we'll avoid those type of foods. And then we do like IV vitamin infusions if we need to. So there's several different factors. And, Angela, it's hard to say like that one treatment plan because every single patient we deal with, they're all completely different. But that's just an example of how we go about doing our treatment plans for functional medicine.
Thank you. And I'm still on this IV nutrient therapy because I may want to try this myself. So I have questions as far as like the cost. I don't know if you want to share your cost structure here on the podcast, but another question is this something that can be covered by your health insurance?
So, Angela, it really depends, on each individual insurance company. Everyone covers different levels of services. I've seen some companies that will cover the entire treatment and some that will not. You have to remember that we're actually infusing vitamins, and a lot of times they are considered alternative therapies, so they may not be covered. However, part of it may be covered because you're actually getting the nutrients from like this normal saline that we use. So they may actually cover that in that sense. What I found typically is that if you pay like the cash price, it's usually cheaper than actually going through insurance, depending on how high the deductible may be. But our IV infusion, they can range anywhere from maybe like $100 up to about sometimes $300 because we have several specialized IV infusions that can take about 30 minutes and some can take up to an hour.
Like I'm starting to ask questions for myself now. Does this include like B12 and
Yes.
Okay. What
So
about
there's several different nutrients, and some of the things that we do, and you asked before about like the custom treatment plans.
Mhm.
Now, we can actually, and we may actually check what's called your micronutrients and see if you have any deficiencies in those nutrients. And we try to customize those IV nutrient therapies based upon those deficiencies. So we're actually giving you what your body needs. So like you mentioned, B12, that could be one of them. You could be deficient in vitamin C, or you can be deficient in amino acids, whatever it may be, that's what we're going to complement you with.
It all makes sense now. Thank you so much for that. And so this last year, or I'd say the last 10 months, I don't want to put us in a pandemic for a year just yet. The last 10 months has been so hectic for so many people in regards to trying to maintain their weight, work out, get out of the house. And so many people have put on these quote unquote quarantine pounds, myself included. And so what would you suggest for someone who is really trying to stick to their New Year's resolution and get healthy and stay in shape? What sort of natural remedies can you suggest for someone who, let's say they just need to lose 20 pounds and they're already working out? What else can you suggest for that person?
Well, when I say to that, COVID-15, I guess that's what they're calling it, I can relate. So what I would say, typically when people come to me for weight loss, and that is a very, very common thing that I get in phone calls we get is weight loss, not just for the beginning of the new year, but just in general. What I say to people is that you're more than likely you're having some weight gain because of some type of imbalance. So I tell my clients, if you're looking for a weight loss treatment like a magic pill, there's just not one out there. Because otherwise, wouldn't be here talking to you. I'd be somewhere sitting on my boat. I'd be a rich woman now, because it just doesn't exist. So what I would say to that is determine what's causing the weight gain. And if it's something like you've been sitting at home, you're under a lot of stress, that could be your cortisol levels are elevated just because you're having some anxiety or where it may be, that can cause weight gain. And just having the inability to lose weight, not just because of COVID and the pandemic right now, there's something that could have been going on before. You need to figure out if there's some type of imbalances. Are you eating the right foods? We actually have DNA tests to determine what type of foods you should be eating according to your DNA. Also, the type of exercises you're doing. We also have a DNA test for that as well to see what is right for your body according to your DNA, what type of exercise you should be doing. And then also go back to stress, making sure make sure there's no, physical, mental, emotional stressors. Those all things play a factor in how you're gaining weight. And if there's any inflammation. And if there is, then we try to find some natural remedies to help, one, reduce inflammation and figure out what the root of it is. The other thing is chemical imbalance and hormone imbalances. That's what I'm about. And so, Angela, I wish I can give you a pill or an exact remedy because there's not really one out there. I mean, there's things that can help, boost your metabolic rate to help your speed up your metabolism. Yes, but I would say figure out what your imbalances are first.
So figuring out your imbalance and what works specifically for you because our bodies are so different. So I'm sure you've seen this as well on social media where it's not necessarily during the new year, but all times of year where there's promotions for flat tummy tea and all these weight loss or detox teas. And so many people will say, well, this is really great to reset your body for weight loss, to reset your metabolism. Do you consider the weight loss teas one of those like natural remedies?
Well, yeah. So when I say like if you're talking about like resetting your body and just in general, and then that would help naturally to help you lose weight. Yes, I definitely agree with that. And then tea does have a natural ability to be able to speed up your metabolism. So like if you're having things like bloating, you feel sluggish, no energy, and just maybe even sometimes food cravings can be a sign that yeah, your body needs to be reset. More than likely it's your metabolism. So doing a detox is not a bad idea. If whether it's tea or whatever it may be, I would say definitely do time of detox if it's tea every 3 to 4 months. So there's certain teas like black tea is one. It has methazantines in it. It actually increases your heart rate and speeds up your metabolism. And then same thing with green tea. It has a natural antioxidant to help decrease those levels of inflammation and also help you lose weight.
Okay. Now you said no matter what the detox, it's always good to sort of reset, or not necessarily in those words. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to get into juice cleansing because that's another thing that's become very popular. And I'll see so many people doing like the 1 week or the 10-day cleanse for the juicing. Or another thing that I've seen, and this is something that I started to do too, because I started to see it on social media where people would incorporate the celery juice into their breakfast. And I tried it and it was disgusting. So, what are your thoughts on like the juice cleanse, like the 7-day, 10-day, or just incorporating something like celery juice into your morning breakfast?
Well, first, I guess with the celery juice, you have to find the right. I don't know if you've ever prepared celery juice. It's really difficult to make. So if you don't have any experience in it, maybe either find something that could be possibly pre-made that helps. Because actually, I love celery juice, and I do think it's a great detox, especially in the morning. I always recommend doing the celery juice maybe 20 minutes like right when you wake up in the morning. Do it within the first 20 minutes, and it's great. When it comes to like the other juice cleansings, I actually agree with that. I usually try to myself, and I actually recommend some of my clients if they don't have any of the medical issues that may be contraindicated to, is to juice at least once a week for 24 hours because that helps to reset the body every week. Or even if you can do it maybe like 2, 3 times a week, there's really nothing wrong with that. And it helps to one, if you do the juice like with vegetables and fruits, like things like that, it helps get the nutrients into your body that you need. It's an easy way to get the vegetables that you need. It's a good way to help protect against losing those nutrients that when you do cook, sometimes you'll lose the nutrients because of the heat sensitivity. Like you said, it improves energy. And to me, I think the juice is actually more convenient. Some days I just juice because I don't have time to eat. So overall, I'm a huge fan of juicing.
I tried this for maybe a few weeks straight, and I would buy the bottles from Whole Foods.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I can't chug this entire bottle. So I was traveling for work. I would buy a few for the week and every morning I just drink a little bit. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. And I was like, okay, it just changed. It seems like it changed my taste buds. But I did notice like the few times where I was like being consistent that I would have less cravings like for food. And so I don't know if that played a part.
Absolutely, absolutely, definitely does. It's help cleaning out your gastrointestinal system, keeping down that inflammation.
Mhm.
And probably what we may recommend is doing like maybe just 8 ounces in the morning when you start out, and see if that'll help. A lot of times the taste may be unbearable for some people, but it really does help with, keeping the flat tummy, like you said, and giving you a lot of energy, and it's helping you restart in the morning instead of feeling so sluggish throughout the day.
All right, so this question I want to get into, I put this on the list because it's personal. And so, we're in the conversation of detox and flat tummy teas and juicing and actually, like, for myself, of course, trying to lose these quarantine pounds, I said, what can I do to reset my body this year so I can get going? So for the first 7 days of the new year, I did the weight loss tea detox. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see if I can reset my body. I'm going to see if I have less cravings. And I actually did notice that I wasn't craving food as much. Whereas I would wake up the next morning, I would drink the tea at night, wake up the next morning, and I wasn't hungry. I didn't really crave any food until 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I could get by like that morning, that entire morning, just by like maybe a half of an orange, or maybe like sometimes not even eating anything, which I know is not necessarily the best option or best thing to do. But I noticed that because one thing for me with the first 6 months of COVID last year, we were just sitting in the house and doing nothing, not going anywhere. And I'm a very active person. And so for me to be in the house that long, like the pounds started to pack on. And I said, I have to do something. So I started to work out. I started cycling. I started strength training. And then I noticed my body was like toning up, but I wasn't losing weight. And I was like, what the heck is going on?
Mhm.
And everyone's like, well, your legs look so good. They look so toned. You're building muscle. And then a few more months went by, and I'm like, all right, I've only lost 5 pounds and I've been working out consistently all this time. What is wrong with me? So
Mhm.
what do you recommend for someone who they're working out, you're eating right, but you're not losing weight, I say, as fast as you want?
Okay, so Angela, like I said before, I would just recommend, like I said, trying to figure out what your imbalance is, because something changed over the past year. I guess those first 6 months you were doing everything you needed to do, but there's a lot of changes that happened in this year. 2020 has been a crazy year for everyone. So maybe there's a lot more stress. Have you noticed yourself, maybe eating differently? What's going on with your chemical balance? Have you been able to go into your doctor and check those things? Are there any issues like with hormones? I don't know, what age group you're in. I can't really say, but I mean, things can change during that time. So that's what I would say. Just go in and try to figure out, maybe find like a functional medicine doctor. You have one right here. Come in and you can do some diagnostic tests and maybe some laboratory to figure out the big picture, what's actually going on. It can't just be, I know you're doing the work, but there's got to be something else that could be causing that imbalance. So that would be my recommendation.
So definitely, I may have to come in and schedule an appointment with you. I've been to my primary care physician, and we've done the labs, the panels, and checked everything, and checking thyroid, and everything
Mhm.
looks good. And I'm like, well, what the heck is going on?
Angela, the thing about that, when you do go in, no, that's great, getting checked out. But you have to understand, though, that sometimes those tests could be, the results can be just based off of that particular region that you're in. Meaning that, if you're in North Texas, that's what they base the lab results on. So then you may not necessarily fit in that particular box. So it shows your labs are normal, but maybe they're slightly abnormal just for who you are, based off like your height, your weight, your age, ethnicity. All those things play a factor. That's why I said you really have to look at the individual, not just say, okay, well, this diet worked for them. Why is it not working for me? That's because your body chemistry and body makeup is completely different.
Thank you so much for that. I think we've gotten through some of the basics, but there's some services you offer that I definitely wanted to sort of save the best for last. And I think you know what I'm getting to. So I know your office offers sexual health therapy.
Yes.
Can you get into some of those services? And I saw something called the e-shot, and I was like, what is that? That sounds painful.
Oh
And I'm like,
boy.
what is going on here?
Well, I guess if you want, we can start with that. E-shot is actually, we actually have a natural substance that we use in the office, and we can actually inject it into like the private area. I know that sounds probably painful for some people, but believe it or not, we will numb you and make sure that you're comfortable when having it done. And I have people that have done it before, and they're like, oh, it's not as bad as it sounds, but that's supposed to help replenish and replace some things that may have, I don't want to say deteriorated over time, but as we get older, things start to become more flaccid and may help to give you that extra boost that you need to help improve your sexual functioning. The other thing that we can do is, you may have heard, like, is hormone replacement therapy. We do more natural hormone replacement therapy. One of the common treatments I use is like bioidentical hormones. It's a treatment we actually would inject a small pellet directly under your skin. It may last for about 3 to 4 months, depending on how active you are. And sometimes some people last up to 6 months, but it actually mimics the natural hormones in your body to help give you that boost that you need before, to help decrease your testosterone and estrogen, whatever it may be for you as an individual. And that's what's going to help naturally increase your sex drive and increase your sexual functioning.
Would I be correct in saying that this is more of like the alternative for Viagra?
Wow, that's a well, I would say no, because Viagra is just it's one-time use. It's during that short-term period. It doesn't last for a long time. This is actually a long-term treatment, meaning if you have to obviously keep coming back in, maybe like every 6 months to get it done, but it's not something you have to take like right before sexual intercourse or anything. It's definitely not that. This is something to kind of help replenish your body from what it's losing, because over time, usually by the age that you're 30, you start to decrease your natural hormones in your body, especially all the stressors, the foods that we eat, is going to automatically deplenish the hormones that's caused you to have that sex drive. So I wouldn't necessarily compare it to Viagra, but it does help increase your sex drive like Viagra does. But this is a more natural replacement for you.
And the services are for men and women?
It's for men and women, yes.
Okay, so people listening, y'all might want to call Dr. Dawda
Yeah.
if you have some issues in that area.
Yes, we saved a lot of marriages out there.
Wow. I thought that was so interesting, but something else that I saw and I thought was interesting, and maybe I'm being selfish and relating things to myself, my personal experiences, but I saw sleep and mood enhancement. And for me, for 2 years, well, 2 out of the last 3 years, I was on the road traveling. I was gone 4 or 5 days a week. And typically I cannot sleep in hotels, especially for a long period of time. And so when I was like at a certain client site for maybe 2 weeks at a time, or even 1 week at a time, I would barely get any sleep. So I started to take melatonin, the little gummies to help me sleep, and it worked. But I definitely did not think it was like healthy to take them almost every night. That was like my schedule. I was like, okay, I'm taking these like every night just to sleep. What are the natural offerings that you suggest for sleep therapy?
Well, I mean, there's lots of things that you can do for sleep therapy, but as far as like natural remedies that you can just do at home, like you already said, melatonin, that's one, but you kind of have to understand the sleep cycle. Melatonin kind of, it's the secondary to some other hormones, such as maybe progesterone is one for a lot of women. They have a low progesterone level. We actually will do some natural to help them um, calm down the, whatever, maybe anxiety or just whatever's going on in a normal day. It helps to bring that level down. There's another thing that a lot of more people are starting to understand is like ashwagandha is another one. That helps with stress. It helps with anxiety. That's going to help calm the body down. Another good one that I like to use for people is valerian root. I don't know if you've heard of this one before, but it's very calming. It helps with anxiety and help with sleep. And it actually helps with digestive issues too. I just kind of want to go back to, you kind of have to figure out like what the imbalances are. Because if, say, for instance, you're eating a certain food, especially when you're traveling, if your body's under a lot of stress, it's going to keep you up. So let's get down to the root of what's causing you to not be able to sleep. And we can add the replacements to it. That's great. You can do the ashwagandha, you can do the chamomile, you can do the valerian root, but try to go back and figure out what's actually causing the sleep deprivation, because there's usually something that's off balance that's causing that.
And for me, I attributed that to my travel schedule.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely, I know everyone has their own situation. Some people it's stress. I've been under stress in the past where definitely lost a lot of sleep. So I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah. And then just with you traveling, being up in the air, that's very hard on the body. So that can definitely cause just your body, your chemistry to be off balance.
Yes, yes. So we are almost to the end of the podcast, and I like to ask my guests 3 questions to sort of end this out. And the questions are in relation to the topic of the podcast: milestones, motivation, and money. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I always feel like a game show host when it gets to this part.
Good.
Okay. So question number 1 would be, what do you consider the biggest milestone that you've achieved or the most memorable?
I guess for me, I believe it's probably just overcoming my past medical issues of my own and being able to now use that experience to be able to help others that's going through the same thing that I went through and make it, it's a part of my life. This is what I do. It's not just a job. It's what I love. It's my passion. It's my purpose. So I would say that's probably my biggest milestone is to overcome that and be able to utilize that trauma, or I guess that tragedy, and turn into something great.
Oh, I like that. That's a great answer. I think that's one of the better answers out of the last few guests. Okay, so next, what motivates you?
So I guess that is my motivation, just living understanding my purpose. I'm a true believer. I believe that I was put on this earth for a reason, and being able to live every day and make some type of impact. It can be just someone walking in my path, not just my patients. That's what motivates me to keep going, because I mean, life is so short. We're seeing that. We've seen this in 2020, and just being able to make every day, not just every day, every moment count. That's my motivation, is to be able to make some type of impact on this world where I'm here.
I love it. And what's ironic is I have an episode coming up called Living on Purpose. So definitely can relate to that. I'm a huge advocate of knowing what your purpose is and following that particular path. So the last question is related to money. And so, myself as a financial educator, it's a topic I love discussing and love helping people understand what they should do with their money. So, this question is, at what time in your life did you first relate to money? And let me give you some examples here, because some people have said, okay, it was my first paycheck, or it was when I first got a job, or when I moved out and had to pay my own bills. Just what point did you come to the realization that money was important, or you had this, um, you sort of had this thought where you're like, all right, I'm connecting to money somehow.
Gosh, that wow. So this is a very interesting, maybe a funny question. I remember, gosh, being as young as maybe 5 or 6 years old. And I know because, we didn't grow up with much. We had what we needed, but there was, we could have, obviously there could have been more. I can say that. And so I can see some people have this and some people that don't have these things. And so I used to, count pennies, and I would keep them. And I know this is a weird story, and it probably shouldn't, I don't recommend this to anyone. I would take them and I would put them in my mouth, and I would say, I'm going to keep this and I'm going to save this for later. That's a weird, I know that sounds weird, but that's when I related to, if I get this and I hold on to this, then I should be able to, one, get what I want and then be able to help other people. I know it's a weird thought process, but I was a kid when I discovered, hey, I got to have this money to be able to, not just to be successful in the world, to be able to survive in the world. I learned that very early on. I know it's kind of an odd thing to say, but that's when I first started to relate to money. I remember my dad used to call me and say, well, if I ever need a banker, I'm definitely going to come to you, because I know you try to keep your money straight and keep it tight, and and be able ready to loan it out to someone. So I would say I was a child when I first learned about money.
That's very good to hear, because so many people who I talk to will say their parents never spoke to them about money, or they never really learned about anything money related until they were a little older, which I always thought was a bit odd, because as a child, sometimes you get an allowance, or you get money from different relatives, and there can be that relation that comes that particular way. But that's a great answer.
Right. Well, my dad, he always tell me, if you don't have it and you can't afford it 3 times, then you shouldn't be getting it. That's what I remember. Mhm.
So, Dada, I've enjoyed this conversation and having you as a guest, and I would love to have you back at another time to discuss a different topic, or even health and wellness again in another another light. In closing out, where can our listeners find you?
Well, I definitely appreciate you for having me on the show as well, Angel. It's been such a pleasure, and just love speaking with you. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, you can find me. My clinic is Functional Health and Wellness. We're located out in Frisco, Texas, just north of Dallas. You can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Dr. Dawda, so that's Dawda, or you can visit our website. It's www-dfw-wellness.com, or you can just give us a call, 972-668-7500.
And is there anything else that you'd like to say or close out with?
No, I just say, especially during these times, where a lot of people are suffering, going through, traumas, financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. I would just say, just keep that balance, not just from the physical standpoint, just all the way around. Things are going to get better, and just remembering that everything that you intake, it does cause a some type of physiological response. Just so remember that. Keep your body.
Thanks for listening. Stay connected with Angel online on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Miss RMBA. That's MISSRMBA. Be sure to subscribe and review. Join us next time as we continue to empower you through milestones, motivation, and money.